want to depend on the county, the state, the federal government, you might want to explore something else. You've got to help yourself.
In a lot of ways, that's, well, get in line. You'll be waiting a long time.
That's right.
Something we talked about at that meeting about the levy. Maybe a police department, maybe we say, maybe we'll just rely on the county for a police department, but of course our problem is if we're needing something immediately, and a lot of those needs for a police department or fire and rescue are immediate needs. There's very rarely, oh, just come down when you need to, when you can. It's mostly, I need someone here now. And so having that protection, having that safeguard of having someone on call, ready to go 24 hours a day, is vital to a community to keep it running. Of course, we talked about some of the wait times. If you're waiting on an officer or anything from Greenville, for instance, or a county officer, if they're not in the area, you might be waiting 15, 20, and then up from there minutes to get the help you need, because even in Union City, Indiana, our nearest community would be Winchester, of course, and relying on that, it's at least a 10-minute drive from Winchester, and it's about the same to Greenville. So if that's where they are, if they're somewhere closer, well, that's great, but the problem is that's not always the case. They're not always patrolling in this area, and they may be even further away than Greenville. Maybe they're in the northern parts of the county, and so that's what we got to be concerned with. So two biggest revenue supports or revenue streams for a city, for Union City, Ohio, is income tax and our property taxes.
Property taxes, yes.
Are there user fees? Any user fees for utilities that are in place? For instance, wastewater, are there user fees?
Yes, we have, again, the wet water, wastewater, they're self-supporting with the funds that they get, and we can't use that somewhere else. We can't use those monies for the police department, for example.
Yeah.
That has to be strictly earmarked for the water sewer. And they have some extra monies, which they need because our infrastructure is getting in pretty bad shape, and we had two main breaks, for example, down on Oak Street. Well, we have some other areas in town where that infrastructure needs to be replaced, and it cost a lot of dollars to replace that. Down at the Union City Mold, for example, that's only a 4-inch line. That should be at least a 6-inch, if not an 8-inch line down there. And again, we want to replace that, but it all comes down to funds and having enough to do that, and also making sure that you don't spend all of your monies on that, because another situation could pop up somewhere else, and you need the funds to, again, take care of that. So you have to be extremely careful with how much you're spending, so you've got enough left in the rainy day fund to take care of a situation that might crop up that you're totally not expecting.
Exactly.
And that happens.
It does. Something breaks down like that. Of course, if it's a utility, you've got things in place for that. You've got user fees, but as you said, it's not a decision that you make as a city to say those monies can't be used for police, fire, and rescue. It's a state law, isn't it? Or is it even a federal law? I'm not sure, but at least I know it's at the state level. On the Indiana side, it's the same thing. You can't just take money from this one and say, well, why don't you make a little bit more in user fees to support this side of the city? It doesn't work that way. This pocket can't share money with this pocket, so it's not like you can just throw it into the general fund. The good thing is, of course, those utilities, they're self-supporting, like you said, so that's something that you don't have to be worrying about too many of those general fund monies. But of course, when a water line breaks, it's devastating, isn't it?
It is. It truly is, and we just need to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game as opposed to falling too far behind, because we've had problems in the past where we've tried to get grants and we've been told that our water rates are too low and they have to be raised to show that you're doing everything you can to help yourself. There's been many instances where we haven't raised the rates because we just thought it would be too big of a hardship on the citizens, which that is a fact, but on some of these grants, it's tied to the fees that you are charging the citizens. And if you're not charging enough, they say you need to raise them in order to apply for a grant, again, to show that you're trying everything you can to help yourself. And again, that's what we have to do. We have to help ourselves, because again, if we don't, who will.
Right, exactly. And it's a struggle as a city government to ask a village to pay a little more, I understand, and so, of course, it's on the ballot. That's why we're doing programs like these to encourage people to think about those things. It's important to vote for any reason. Everyone should go out to the ballots in November and vote and make sure that they're paying attention to the candidates that are on there. Not just our presidential candidates, of course, that's an important thing out there too, but to be able to see who's applying, who's going to go for the governorships, our representatives, all of that. Of course, a year ago, you and I had a program on here, and we had a forum essentially for the candidates forum where we had both you and your contender, and you won that. So congratulations. We're glad to see you back in that seat again as mayor. And of course, you were mayor when I was here at school, so we get to see you again in that position. So we get to interact and maybe share some memories with that. So how has things changed in the time that you've been off and then come back? How has the image of the city changed already? When I came back to start working here at KISS TV, I noticed you've even changed locations. Where we used to do the city council meetings was, of course, in the chamber there that was attached to the fire department now, fire and rescue and police department now. The new building you're in right now, how did that acquisition happen?
Well, we bought that from the school when they moved out on 47. I think the year was 2002.
Okay.
Because again, just running out of space.
Sure.
Just the space you have to have in this day and age to retain records, the demands put on you by state or federal, the stuff that you have to keep, not just for a year or two, but maybe 5 years or more, depending on what department it is. And that was a good decision because they needed more room over at the fire and the police department for sure. And that building is paid for, long paid for, but again, you still have maintenance.
Sure.
And we need to continue that, so that one little hole in the roof, which we don't have, but just using that for an example,
right,
doesn't become a complete roof repair. So that's a little, plus some of our equipment is extremely old. It's not just 5, 6 years old, it's 10, 20 years old or older. So we need some equipment replacement. But again, we'll see what happens with the levy that's on the ballot in November the 6th. And then hopefully when that passes, then we can do some shifting around to other funds to hopefully, for example, do some more streets like we did here in 2012, because what we did in 2012 was, I'm going to say, pushing $30,000. Well, where we'll come up with $30,000 in 2013, that's an excellent question.
Right.
And one of the other problems is that we have to have a fairly good carryover into 2013 because we don't get our tax settlement, the first one from the county, until March. So January, February, and part of March can be extremely tight if we don't have a halfway decent carryover to start us out in 2013. And we're hoping that, and it's looking pretty good right now, but again, we still got 2 months to go in this year, and you just don't know what might happen.
Right.
One of the examples I used, Nick, when we had that meeting back on the 11th, is 4 years ago, there were 5 full-time police officers. Now there's 3. We had 5 full-time people on the Department of Public Service. Now we're down to 2. And going to make a decision what we're going to do about that 3rd position, make it full-time or a couple part-timers, or just exactly in what direction we might head. We had a full-time administrator, we don't now. We had a full-time clerk or fiscal officer, we don't now. And we had a full-time tax administrator, and we still have that. So the point is, 4 years ago we had 13 full-time employees, now we have 7. So you can't cut much more than that and provide the services that we do, 24/7 police, snow, when that stuff comes, and maybe this year we won't get any. We've got leaves that need picked up, and the list goes on. So we're just asking our citizens to help us, to help their village.